If you've got the budget, yes. If not, I would read the 4-Hour Work Week right away. So that's it, man. We need energy. So all that to say, we need energy. We need to keep fueled up. This entrepreneur game is not easy. I mean, a job is hard, but entrepreneur, you got to do. You're wearing all the hats. In a job, you show up and run on a treadmill and get your stuff done. When you're running a business, you need to think of accounting, marketing, operations, team.
Do you have any tips about content?
Well, what seems to be working is
Excellent. So joining me today is Brad Axelrad. Brad, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself here?
Okay. Well, let's see. You're a purpose coach, and having a purpose makes us more fulfilled in life. And I, like yourself, and probably all the listeners, were looking for some way to be in service to humanity, to get outside of my own experience, to actually have some level of contribution to provide to people. And that all started after my dad died in 2005. I knew there was what I said is feather tickling, and then the brick hit me. If I ignore the brick or ignore the feather, ignore the brick, the Mack truck will come and take you out. And that was my moment, of that defining moment that shifted me into being a person of contribution and purpose. So I can share more, but that's a good start.
Yeah. Wow. So that started you down the road of coaching and personal development then?
Yeah, people will say, well, how'd you get into this? Why are you here? And really, it's the short answer is massive pain. We all had parents. Our parents sucked. My parents were amazing, but they sucked too. They just didn't know what they were doing. They're humans. We're all doing this human thing, and we don't really know what we're doing. I think parents have come a long way, since our parents 51 years ago. Now I'm 51. And so I did a Tony Robbins event in 2000, and that was awesome. I thought, what is this? This is like this big party, sober party. It's so exciting and awesome. And I was like, this is really neat. Then I did something that was really profound in 2003 called the Hoffman process, the Hoffman Institute. And that changed my life completely. It just stripped all of my childhood programming and pain and conditioning and allowed me to choose who I was in the world. And I created my life from this place of my spiritual self and this clear channel of communication to the divine, whatever you want to call it, the Holy Spirit, God, source, the creator. And from that place in 2003, I started building my life. And then in 2005, like I'd mentioned, my father died, and I wanted to have a purpose. More than anything, it was like that was what was glaring in that moment. It was be in service. Use me. I'm in so much grief. I don't know what to do other than to serve. And I became the Hoffman facilitator, graduate facilitator in Orange County, California. And for 2 years, I led meetings of graduates through their processes. And I wanted to speak about something outside of their processes. So I started producing my own events, and started out as a book study group that then morphed into NBC Nightly News coming and me being interviewed on PBS television in front of 8 million people, and USC News and CBC Radio, LA Times, Orange County Register, all these media. And I started becoming an event producer, not by design. It was all channeled through Dad and Spirit, Source, God. This purpose showed up. And next thing I know, I'm standing in front of stages producing events for hundreds of people regularly. I produced over 200 live events, and yeah, here we are today.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like it took off really fast. What do you think happened there? You just started working on it, or what?
I know the answer to that, and I want the listeners to really tune into this. So the law of attraction speaks about asking for what you want, being in vibrational alignment or resonance with what you're seeking. All of that's true. Quantum physics, there's everything that vibrates together. Eventually in trains, it starts to get entrainment, that things start to vibrate. Eventually, if you're around certain people, you start to get into their frequency. I'm going to say all of that is true, but what's more true in my experience, and what was mostly true in this experience of creating my purpose, was me crying in my hallway, begging the universe, God, to show me my purpose, to not die like I did to not die like my dad did, with his voice still inside of him. I watched him live this life of quiet desperation and suffering at some level because he didn't have purpose. He was lost, and purpose is what really fills us up. Not things, not travel, not food, sex. All those things are great, but they're short bursts of happiness. It's not true joy and fulfillment, right? So what I'm saying there is that level of intense asking, like I'm getting chills and like I was just wailing. I don't think I've ever freaking wailed so hard in my life. Just please show me my purpose. That level of intense asking, more so than vibrational alignment, I think is when we manifest the hell out of things. So just being that intense asking, like I was serious, I was committed, and I was fucking ready. Like that's when it happens.
Right. You become a conduit almost, right?
Totally. That's what I said. Use me as a vessel of service to humanity. I'm ready. That's exactly what I said. You are 100% right.
So you coach people now to get on podcasts?
It's one of the businesses. Yeah. Get me on podcast.com. So I had a podcast. The event production was years ago. I mean, with the exception of another little stint in a biohacking franchise business we built that I sold my ownership interest in about a year ago and moved to Mexico. And that's where I am now. I'm actually here in Cancun, and it's great here for the winters, like we talked about. Snowbirding's great. But the event production, that was back in late 2000s, early 2010s. Like that was another life. But now I've been coaching and consulting people to build a business, all the mechanics of finding your message, finding your power, removing fear, what I call the 5 dragons at faceyourdragon.com. That's my consulting business. And I also had a podcast. It was the Face Your Dragon podcast. So I've interviewed major thought leaders. You guys might know these people. Don Miguel Ruiz of the 4 Agreements was guest number 1. Gay Hendricks with this amazing book, The Big Leap. I highly recommend you read that one. That was guest number 2. My dear friend, Christine Carlson, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Probably heard of that book too. She was guest number 3. I mean, I put all these amazing humans on my podcast and I interviewed them. And we had these great conversations. And that was season 1. And then fast forward, I got into some other projects, was going to launch season 2. But what I realized is that I've been putting people on stages for years. I was just the COO of the Independent National Convention, the political party. We had a convention in Austin in April last year. And we were putting all these people on stages. And it was awesome to put people on stages, but I realized I wanted to start sharing my message again. I've been helping people share their message for years so much that I really wanted to kind of flip the switch and share my own message. It was time. So all of that said, I figured out instead of launching Face Your Dragon podcast season 2, I launched Get Me on Podcasts. But before that, I figured out this great way to get myself on a lot of podcasts and realized that a lot of people want to do that as well. It was time to share my message on lots of platforms like we're doing now. So that's been a fun progression.
Neat. Awesome. So why do other people want to do this? Why do they want to be on podcasts?
Well, I mean, we get to meet cool people like yourself. You and I met because of it. I think you reached out and saw me on LinkedIn, right? You saw I had a podcast, was in it, and you never know who you're going to meet. I mean, when we work with people to get them on 30 to 60 shows, I was just talking to one of our military vet. He's now a ghostwriter and a copywriter right before we got on this, and he landed a multiple month client from just one of the podcast hosts. He wasn't even from one of the listeners. There's so much opportunity in podcasting that, you just never know where it's going to go. So there's just great opportunity in it all around.
Probably very rewarding helping people to tell their stories, I bet, too, huh?
That's a big part of it. Is I've been teaching people for 15 years how to come up with their message, to find their story, to create their impactful conversion sort of genesis story, and why it's meaningful for them, and why it's meaningful for others to hear it shared. Yeah, it's really fun.
Awesome. Awesome. So what all does your program include if someone's interested in starting a podcast? I mean, it could be anybody, right?
Well, we're launching the podcast launch side soon. The Get Me On Podcast side is really focused on podcast guesting. So we help them get clear on their message, their website, their lead magnets, all the pieces and the nuts and bolts that they need to look good to a podcast host. And then we help them actually, we've got a proprietary system we use to help them get on 30 to 60 shows. We've got a course area and some other things, but yeah, it's a really cool training, and it's fun. Everybody's super excited. They absolutely love it.
Do any success stories come to mind of clients that you've really helped out?
Well, I think of, on the consulting side, I think of Leah Rolling, and Leah's, I would suspect she's probably about 7 figures at this point. But when she came to me, she was in a transition, wanted to build a coaching business, didn't really know where to start. And she's a powerhouse. She would have done it with me or any other coach or consultant, honestly. But it's always a pleasure to take these people from, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared. What's social media? I don't want to talk on social media. And now she's just this powerhouse out there, changing lives for many years. It's really beautiful to see. So that's on the coaching and consulting side. But the podcast guesting side, we've got, I think of a doctor we have in there, PhD. She's already booked herself on 30 shows. She just got in, I think, in November. She's just, it's really fun to watch them blossom and share their message. And you can, in the beginning, they're nervous. They're like, I don't know, what am I going to share? And even I get nervous on these things. We can talk about the 5 dragons in a minute that I've uncovered that we all experience. I watch them experience those, and then now they're so empowered. They're so confident. Like, yeah, I was just on 3 shows this week. And, it's like there's this amazing switch from, I don't know, to, yeah, you can just feel it in the message threads and the conversation. It's really fun.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think a lot of people want to get better at speaking in public, but they don't really know how or know what to do.
100%. And most people are afraid. I'm deathly afraid of public speaking. You'd never know it. It's the number one fear on the planet above dying, is the fear of public speaking. So most people have it at some level, and that could be on camera, a TikTok video, getting interviewed on a podcast like we are right now, and maybe standing on stage. I have ways to move through that, but I've found that there are the 5 dragons. You want me to share those? I think they'd be useful. Yeah. So we all go through these when we're about to share a message or build a business or, stand on stage. So I've uncovered the 5 main fears, or what I call dragons. And the first one is the imposter. Second is scarcity. So imposter, scarcity, value, unheard, and critics. And those 5, or all of them, like I've had to navigate all of them. And the hundreds, and if not thousands of people that have sat in my chairs, but the hundreds that I've worked with in groups or one-on-one, one or more of those is keeping them stuck, not building the business they want, not sharing the message they want. They're really there.
Right. So what do you find is the best, how do you start with clients, when you're trying to deal with these 5 dragons?
Well, exposure therapy is important, right? If you feel like an imposter, put yourself out there, right? If you fear public speaking, do it. There's some exceptions there, but people say, how do you help people face their dragon, Brad? And I say, well, I help them build a business, and they instantly get it. If they're a business owner, they go, oh yeah, I've had to face every single possible fear, hesitation, worry, doubt from myself and others is starting a business. So that's the first thing. If they're a business owner, they're going to be pushed into these things. So now what? So three-step process. We want to find the fear. So what is it really? It's not that you have a fear of public speaking. That's above it. Underneath it, it's that I'm going to be found out as an imposter or fraud, or I'm not going to get the amount of clients I need if I start this business. It's always underneath the surface fear. We think it's this, but it's really this. So we want to find the fear, go through a process of finding it. Then we want to face it. We want to get real with ourselves, with the fear. I have a fear, and we want to name it. We want to own it. We want to communicate it to ourselves first and to others, and to really set ourselves free by just communicating and owning it. There's great power in just naming it and owning it, right? Then we want to use it. That's the big thing. We want to use the fear. We don't want to let it cripple us and prevent us from taking action. We want to learn to channel that energy and put it into our work, into our message, into our, like right now, I'm nervous and excited, right? No, that's not fear. That's excitement, as my friend Greg Moores used to say. Or fear is excitement without the breath, the founder of Gestalt therapy, Fritz Perls. So we need to breathe, but we want to use the fear. We don't want to be choked up by it. We want to open up all of our chakras, even focusing your energy on the crown of your head, opening all these chakras. Physiology is a big thing from Tony Robbins. Stand tall, change your physiology, use your fear. It's there to serve you.
Yeah. Survival instinct, right?
Tap into that. Exactly.
So what is another theme maybe that you find a lot with clients? A recurring theme maybe?
Well, in my experience, it tends to be a technology overwhelm. That's kind of the reoccurring theme. They're like, oh my gosh, well, I don't know how to do all these things. So they just get into overwhelm and totally freeze and lock up, and then they're stuck. So my recommendation around technology is, look, I didn't know it either. I was freaking horrible, but you got to put the time into anything. The only way you're going to learn something is by sucking at it, being an imposter, being a fraud. Get in the game and just put the energy into learning. Study YouTube videos. Just spend as much time as you possibly can on your computer. The computer will set you free. That is the freedom machine. So put time into learning anything you possibly can on the computer. Even if you get overwhelmed, keep going, keep leaning into the discomfort. Fear means go. Discomfort is you're going the right direction. Just keep leaning in. So that's it. I would just highly recommend. It's really a tenacity thing. It's a grit thing. You got to have the grit with building one of these businesses. Don't give up. That's it. Just keep going.
Yeah, I find belief is really important too. Like if you believe that you can solve the computer problem, then you'll solve the computer problem. If you believe you remember all your passwords, then you'll probably remember your passwords. But if you believe it's really difficult and nobody else can do it either, then you probably won't.
Fair enough. I just noticed the background behind you up on the ceiling there, the bliss light or whatever that is. I hadn't seen that until now.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Kind of like a kid's nightlight.
Yeah, I agree. That level of conviction and believing in yourself and leaning into the doubt, the fears, it's never going to go away. That's the other thing I like to say. It's like, look, fear never goes away. You just get better at managing it. Like, oh, I've been here before. There's that fear again. It definitely can be less. But when we learn to ride our dragon, if you've ever seen Avatar, or How to Train Your Dragon, it's like they became friends with their dragon. Your dragon is your friend. It's your power. Your shadow is your gift to humanity. It's your purpose on the planet. It's your moneymaker. That's the energy you want to harness and tap into. So your fear is a good thing. You just need to reframe it and shift it a little bit.
So what are you excited about this year that you're working on right now for projects and all?
Well, it's I just joined forces with a really exciting team with the Get Me On podcast with 2 months within 2 months of starting the business. Joined forces with a very large team of developers and marketers and operations. And when I say large, it's 300 people big. So we're really going to take this thing up a notch. And so that's been really fun. Like anything, when you first start out and join relationships, you're figuring all the pieces out. Where do all the puzzle pieces fit? How do we play together? So that's exciting and exhilarating, is trying to put the puzzle together. So that's really fun. So like I said, we'll be launching the podcast launching and marketing side of the business probably in Q2, which will be really fun. Yeah, but scaling this thing to the moon is the biggest exciting thing I've had in years. And this was another defining moment in my life where I was asking and not quite begging, but ready. I said, I'm ready to serve again. I'm ready. I'm in a place of being in total service. What do I do? And that was when the idea came through for Get Me On Podcast. So if you're serious to find that excitement and that purposeful thread, try to tap into that. Where can you be more of service versus how do I make money? That alignment with contribution and service will always have something very positive show up.
Definitely found that to be true myself.
Yeah, the universe responds to that. The Holy Spirit, God, whatever it is, something responds to that humility and tenderness and sincerity.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Good. Great. Good things to have when you're in a coach.
I mean, in life, in relationship, anything, we need to be humble. We need to be sincere. We need to be authentic. Yeah, all those things really, try to be more vulnerable, I think would be another tip. It's like, how can you find that story and find that thread in your life that people will resonate with? Like, I'm afraid. Here I am. I've been all over media. I've produced all these events. Some of the biggest thought leaders on the planet are friends. I hang out with them. It's like, I'm cool. I'm saying all that to say, like, I'm this cool guy. But what I mean, it's like people might be viewing me as someone who's experienced and done a lot of things, which I have. And I'm saying that to say that what's more important is to be able to connect in a real way, a human way, an authentic way. It's like, it's kind of oversaid now in some circles, like, be transparent, be authentic, but that's really what works. That's what people want. It's like, let's just be real. Like, I'm scared to be on this podcast. I was nervous. I didn't know what the fuck I was going to talk about. It's totally normal.
Yeah. Yep. Even though you've done hundreds of them already and you're totally used to it.
I've been interviewed probably 70 times at least, and interviewed, almost the same, maybe even more between the stages and everything else. Yeah, probably 100, maybe even more than that, maybe 150 people. Yeah, it's and I still get nervous. Here I am hitting the record with Don Miguel Ruiz of the Four Agreements. I mean, I don't know if you know who that is. Like, he's the Mexican Deepak Chopra. People say, like, he's a big deal, and he was guest number one. Like, I'm like, who am I to even have this conversation with Miguel? But I know Miguel, but still, it was intimidating, and that's normal. We're all going to feel the stuff, and it's awesome.
So you're alive, I guess, right?
What? I'm alive. Exactly. If you're alive, if you're breathing, you're going to experience these things. So more power to you. You should be grateful that we get to experience these things because we're above ground, I think is partially your point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also, so I want to share this. I'm also sorry. I'm super grateful. I just came through the flu or COVID or dengue fever. I don't know what it was. My knee started itching where I had this really strange mosquito bite, and I could have been dengue, but I'm just so grateful to be feeling healthy again. I just came through a rough 2 weeks right after Christmas, like for 2 weeks after that. It was intense. So I'm super grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome back. Glad you're feeling better.
Thanks. I'm sorry to interrupt. What were you saying?
Well, I was just wondering about what else you might tell small business owners or prospective clients of yours that want to get into podcasting maybe and are thinking about expanding their business but aren't too sure about it. What would you tell them?
It really depends on the kind of business, but I think in general purposes, having that for general purposes, having that through line or the story. It's like, what, there's a bunch of plumbers, there's a bunch of coaches. I mean, there's all competition in any vertical, right? There's a lot of people that do a lot of things. So what's going to differentiate you in the marketplace? And what we were just talking about is really key. It's that story of, how can you vulnerably share and differentiate yourself through your personality and your depth of wisdom that's real and authentic that people can relate to. So I would just try to, again, tune into that. It's key. Obviously, being visible on social media is really key. But I wouldn't focus on all 10 of them, 500 of them. Focus on 2 or 3. But more importantly, I'd focus on 1 even. You need to be on them kind of, but I would really make sure you're focused on Facebook and Instagram, at least those 2. Make sure you're relatively active on those. And, as far as starting a podcast, I wouldn't necessarily recommend someone start one right away. And that's why I started Get Me On Podcast. Because like I said, it was the choice between starting mine and I already have all the assets and the positioning. And it was so much work to set up a podcast. And that's why people will hire us to set one up. If you've got the budget, great. Pay someone to do it all. If you don't, it is a huge task. It takes a lot of time, energy, and it's faster, I think, and easier to sort of on-ramp by way of getting on shows, seeing what happens, seeing what the show hosts do, seeing what they need from you, seeing what they send you after the show. It's so much faster to learn by modeling someone else. Tony Robbins has been talking about that forever. And ironically, I'm wearing a black shirt. He always wears black. So are you. And I'm not a huge Tony guy, but Tony's amazing. Obviously, the guy's done trillions of dollars in revenue since he's started. Got to be in the billions by now. He talks about modeling, and it'd be a great way to see behind the scenes by getting on a lot of shows, getting practiced, seeing how people interview, seeing how you respond. So if you flip the script, see how you're going to be interviewing, see how people are going to respond, how to keep the energy up in the show. So it's just good practice, and modeling is key. I would get on podcasts first and foremost, for sure.
Yeah, I've heard people say it takes about 200 shows before you start to get a feel for your own shows.
Before you get any traction, before you get any clients. I mean, I put huge names on my show, people that have billions of views, like JP Sears, if you know who he is. The funny guy, redheaded, long hair. He's got billions of views. Even with JP, I didn't get try. I thought, I've got JP on the show. I'm set for life. I'm going to get millions of views. Just doesn't work that way. It takes a big budget to market it. It takes a lot of time, energy, and money to really make it happen.
To get to that point where you're a podcast professional and people are paying to go on your show, you mean?
You can charge people, you can get sponsorships, you can set it up so you can pick up some clients through the show, of course, but it takes a lot of views to really get going. But it is great to have all the content. I've got incredible content. And I just would personally recommend being a guest first on 5 to 50 shows and really get it down, and then start yours. Yeah.
That's a good tip. I like that. Do you have any tips about content?
Well, what seems to be working is 30 to 60 second reels at this point. Consistency is key, which I fail miserably. And then other times I'm super consistent for a couple of weeks, even a couple of months, and then I just fall off. So having a system, something or someone to hold you accountable to creating regular and consistent content. 3 reels a day, I'm hearing, is the holy grail. We're about to start doing that. Consistency with 3 reels a day, and eventually you hit this and then it's off. So obviously we've got AI now to start creating a lot of these things, but systems. Learn to outsource. We teach a lot about outsourcing. I've been outsourcing since the 4-hour work week, the 4-hour work week by Tim Ferriss. Not sure you read that one, back in probably 05 or 06. '06-ish, '07, somewhere in that. And I've had an outsource team. So learn how to source and outsource. Uh, Upwork.com is incredible to source talent. So yeah, learn how to find talent and use very low cost talent.
Even when you're first starting and you're brand new at it, you think?
If you've got the budget, yes. If not, I would read the 4-Hour Workweek right away. That would be a great tip. E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I've interviewed Michael Gerber he was on a stage of mine in 2010. I interviewed him on a podcast as well. That's the number one best-selling business book of all time. I don't know what they've sold, but it's a lot. And he talks a lot about systems. You don't have a business if you don't have systems, which is true. And then Tim Ferriss is really about sort of life hacking and outsourcing. And he was the first to really bring that to the world in a big way. Let's see, what else? Biohacking, nutrition, health. Make sure I'm drinking alkaline water here. I've got bone broth with grass-fed butter that I just had before I got on this show. So I had some power and with a little bit of salt in there to have some minerals. Like, look, life is hard. Entrepreneurship, even harder. So we need as much power and clarity as possible. And what I mean by that, eat right, try to stay away from crap food. Sure, eat it once in a while, but most of the time you're going to need supplements. You're going to need good water. You're going to need healthy foods. Like, we need as much energy as possible. That leads me to the caffeine addiction that most have. That's a big spike in the morning and they crash in the afternoon. I don't drink coffee and I have 10 times more energy than most people that do because of I say less stimulants, more supplements. Less stimulants, more nutrition.
I like green juice a lot.
Green juice in the afternoon. So here's my day. You want to hear my day? It might be helpful. Morning routine. Sometimes I meditate, not always. Sometimes I work out in the morning. It depends where I'm at. But having a good morning routine, right? Water, alkaline water. I'm now taking Metamucil, which I'm amazed I didn't take that all these years. Like, my poops are great. I know that's maybe too much info, but Metamucil is awesome. We need to get rid of toxins as much as we need to be putting nutrients in our body. So keeping things like that in mind. But I have a smoothie every morning. It's organic berries, organic spinach, plant protein, avocado, chia seed, flax seed, hemp seed, and cinnamon. And every morning, just pure power. Then a healthy lunch most of the time, whatever that looks like. It might be eggs. It could be salads. And then when I hit that bog, when most people hit that midday bog at 3, 4, because their adrenals are absolutely destroyed from all the caffeine they've drank in the morning, I hit the vegetable juice. That's it. Then I'm spiked on sugar and micronutrients until bedtime. So vegetable juice, great idea, man. Huge advocate of that. And then dinner can vary. Last night we cheated. We went and had buffalo wings, fries, and chicken tenders with some blue cheese, like total cheat meal. It was amazing. The front door just opened on its own. I'm like, oh. So that's it, man. We need energy. So all that to say, we need energy. We need to keep fueled up. This entrepreneur game is not easy. I mean, a job is hard, but entrepreneur, you got to you're wearing all the hats. In a job, you show up and run on a treadmill and get your stuff done. When you're running a business, you need to think of accounting, marketing, operations, team, fulfillment, technology, all of it.
Yeah. It's a big difference between the employee mentality of doing what you're told and just the bare minimum to get by, and as an entrepreneur doing everything that you can possibly think of.
We really do it all. And it's a special dance that we get to try to do. Yeah. Yep. Was
there anything else you wanted to mention today, or
no? I mean, I feel we covered a lot. Yeah, I just if you're an entrepreneur, don't give up. This is your time to set yourself free, and you might get scared. And I love Bob Proctor's. Maybe I'll leave you with this. Bob Proctor is a favorite. I've known Bob for years. Well, I knew Bob for years, I should say. And one of the things he used to say a lot is that people hit their terror barrier and go right back into bondage because it's safe there, so they think. So people will start something new. They hit their threshold or their glass ceiling, their upper limit, as Gay Hendricks talks about in The Big Leap. I really recommend everybody read that book. They hit their limit, and they'll go right, oh my God, I'm too scared. I'm petrified. I don't know what to do. I'm going to go get a job because that will make me feel more comfortable. But when they do that, they're going back to this place of now someone's dictating your time. Your entire life is now, you just handed over your freedom to someone and said, here, tell me what to do. Because I'm too afraid to figure it out on my own, and I lack discipline or focus, or I have a bad diet and don't have the energy to maintain an entrepreneurial endeavor, they go back to a job. And it's unfortunate, but it's bondage. And I challenge you right now to never do that. No matter how scared you get, you just keep working. If you've got to work 12 hours a day, 6-7 days a week, do it, because eventually you're going to set yourself free completely.
Well, thanks a lot for taking the time to speak with me, Brad.
You bet. I'm glad you reached out. I'm glad I had the time today to get it done. I appreciate the offer.
Yeah. We'll have to catch up again soon. See how everything's going.